Welcome to the Culture and Sports Podcast, where we have discussions about how leadership and organizational culture impact organizational success, team and athlete performance, and the short and long-term mental, physical, and emotional health of athletes. The Culture and Sports Podcast is brought to you by Culture and Sports. Culture and Sports helps sports organizations, teams, coaches, support and front office staff, and athletes understand the importance of leadership and organizational culture and its direct impact to success. I'm Dr. Jeremy Piasecki, and this is the Culture and Sports Podcast. Welcome back to the Culture and Sports Podcast. I'd like to introduce you to today's guest, Jason Olive of the Los Angeles Volleyball Club. Jason has been selected as a finalist nominee for the Culture and Sports' 2023 Sports Leader of the Year. Thank you for coming on today, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
I normally introduce each guest at the beginning of each episode, but I really want to be able to try to have, the viewers and listeners really understand your story and capture it. So can I ask you to tell us about your life story and your sports journey a little bit?
Okay. Well, it's got a long story, yeah? Lots of twists and turns, yeah. I can see why you dodged this one, Jeremy. Okay, but I'm going to tell a little bit of story that is actually tied into something I get from parents a lot, right? When we play club volleyball, it's a big investment of time and it's a big financial investment as well. And one of the things that parents will always say, well, what if my kid doesn't like it? And I always say, well, let me tell you my story. Okay, so I started off, first sport that I love, two sports were soccer and golf. Those are the first two sports I love. Soccer I was pretty good at. And I played on an international team, and we went first I was old enough, it was a U18 team. So finally I get U16, I'm good. They're like, okay, we're going to select you for the team. This team's called USA Eagles. It's based out of California, but we're going around the world, and we're representing the United States, okay? And so we go to Singapore, and we go to Malaysia, and we go to China. We play, and we do really well. We do pretty well against. We didn't play in China, just visited, but Singapore, Malaysia, we do really pretty well. Even though we were actually playing in monsoons, maybe that helped us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So coaches say, "Well, gosh, we're so good. Let's go play Real Madrid." And I'm like, "You mean like Real Madrid, San Gabriel Valley? You mean like Real Madrid, Houston?" Like, no, we're awesome. We're going to go to Spain, and we are going to play Real Madrid in Madrid. Okay, great. Away game. Cool. So, long story. We played other clubs, Sitges, Rayo Vallecano, a couple of these clubs, but Real Madrid. We get on the bus, we're in Madrid, and we go, and there's a giant stadium. Right, and we drive around the stadium, and this thing is so big. We're all looking up at the windows, trying to see how high this is just going to be incredible. And the bus keeps going. Right, sunshine comes back on the bus from the shadow of the Coliseum. We say, "Well, where are we going?" And in whatever English he had, the bus driver conveys to us like, "Oh no, you're not playing there. You're not." As a matter of fact, until you become the A team of the B team, you're not even playing on grass.
Oh,
you're gonna
wow.
play, yeah. You're gonna play over there, and what it is imagine like a perfect pitch, right? But it's baseball diamond, like whatever you want to call it, clay / gravel, right? Yeah. But it's like clayish type gravel, and it is hard packed, right? And we go, oh my God. Okay, let's try this. We're out there. Finally, Real Madrid shows up. And remind you, this is their U18. I'm going to tell you why that's important in a little bit. So they come out, and these are men, right? Their legs are the size of our chest, right? And we start realizing that the problems that we're having controlling this ball on this hard surface are not the problems they're having. They have no problem. Right, this ball is moving so fast. They're stopping it so perfectly. The shots are blowing the net up, and this is just 2 minutes into warm-ups. Okay, game starts. Long story short, I play the first half. There are 36 shots on goal.
Wow.
I stopped 24. I let up 4. I have cracked ribs, and there's literally blood coming out of my mouth.
And no broken fingers, though?
No, just the ribs. Right. And oh my God, halftime never came came fast enough, right? We end up losing that game 10-0. And I am, and that was showing a great will on behalf of Real to not make it 15 or 20-0. At one point, a guy hits a bicycle kick, and you're talking about 1988 metal, not alloy, not aluminum. This is and the goal rocks off the hinge, and I just went, oh my god. And it's a play, right? Because the next play they run the exact same play, and the ball goes in the upper corner, right? This is ridiculous. Okay, so I'm laying in my hotel room. I'm one of the kids that my parents can't afford to come on this kind of trip with me. I'm 16. I'm in a hotel room alone in Spain with cracked ribs, and I'm looking up at the ceiling. And I say to myself, I go, we play soccer. This group of people on this planet, they play football. Those are two completely different sports. We will never be this good in my lifetime in the United States at football. I quit. Okay, I'm going to go find something else to do. And I go back home and try out for the volleyball team. Okay, sure. I played around with soccer for a couple more years in high school, was completely disinterested. It led to a great career as a punter for the football team, set some records. That was the end of my soccer career and beginning of my volleyball career. And so when parents say, like, what if you don't like it? I go, yeah, that might happen. You might not like it. But the point being that whenever you engage in something with full passion, with full heart, and, dreaming big, that investment will never be lost. That, I believe, is actually, people believe in God, they believe in spirit, or they just believe in, their own heart and mind for guidance. Whatever that voice is that rises up inside you, when you respect it, in the sense that whatever it's driving you to do, that you try to do that to the very best of your ability, that road is going to take you somewhere that you're supposed to be. It will most likely never look like the place that you thought it should be. Right? But the point is that you've engaged with full heart and full integrity. And it led me to volleyball. Who knew that playing defense in volleyball was nothing compared to being a goalkeeper against Real Madrid? Like, oh, you want me to dig that ball? I got to dive that way? I don't even have to catch it? I love this game. This is an awesome game. You mean all you got to do is cut down the angle and touch it, and then somebody else will get it? Oh, this is fantastic, right? I also thought the net was 10 feet, so I practiced hitting a ball. I tied a ball up in a bowling bag and tied it up on the rim and got the tryouts and realized the net's only 8 feet. Oh, this is awesome. Okay. So I fell in love with the sport. I had amazing coaches out of some amazing schools. Punahou, which a lot of people know now, that's where Obama went to school. Most people know it as that. But Punahou is one of the great traditions in high school volleyball in this country. You could say Miracosta and Punahou are maybe, traditionally, classically, two of the greatest traditions in high school volleyball in our nation. And I just so happened to have coaches that were from Punahou. We played there, that played at LMU, Loyola Marymount here, and they were my high school coaches, and they taught me how to play for real, and they loved playing on the beach, so I would spend every free minute I had on the beach. And by the time I was basically that summer between my junior and senior high school year, I was able to qualify for the Manhattan Beach Open, which was really pretty cool.
That's a huge event too.
Oh, a huge event, granddaddy of them all. And there was 3 high school guys that qualified for the tournament. 2 great players that qualified together. David Swadek, Seaman Canyon, I think was, I don't know, maybe 3-time All-American.
And then there was you.
1 or 2 rings at Stanford, and then there was me, and I went to Hawaii. So we all. David went to UCLA. I went to Hawaii. Canyon went to Stanford. But that was huge for me. I got to play one season of club there. Like I said, my parents didn't have the money, so I played on scholarship. I always say that with kids. I say, when I was playing in club on scholarship, they said, go play on the twos team. This is another thing as a club director. And parents are like, well, what do you mean my kid's on the twos team? I was like, what's wrong with the twos team? You're bringing up stuff for me now. Like, what's wrong with the twos team? Don't make the twos team better, right? Because, I mean, I played at that club at that time. I think both rosters of ones and twos, they all went play Division One, right? So, you know, you go play, you go take what you get. And I always tell kids, you know, when I was playing on scholarship at club, it felt kind of like, I don't know, you know, a little uneasy, you know, you know, it doesn't feel that great maybe. And then all of a sudden you play on a free ride in college and everybody loves you. Everybody's your friend. I say, what's the difference? You know, you're playing for free in both places. One just feels a lot better, you know, one doesn't feel like a hand-me-down, you know, but, you know, working with kids, you have to work through those emotions, and it's nice to have had that experience. I went to Hawaii. I wanted to play at Hawaii because of the coaching staff there. Alan Rosehill, and Coach Crab, Tony Crab, was considered maybe I'll just use this word, the gnarliest coach in the United States. Just tough, demanding, no slack in Tony Crab. Rosehill was kind of like, he'll hold your hand a little bit, you know, and get you through it. But the two of them had created a style of play. Originally, it was started a little feedback here, I think. It was originally started Dave Soji, who was both the men's and the women's coaches at various points in Hawaii, and you know, that style of play was so different. It was so exciting. I went to, you know, my recruiting. They came to California. My high school was in Playa del Rey, and they came and watched me play, and they say, well, come watch us play. And they were playing at LMU, which was 5 minutes from my high school. So I went, and there was a play that happened, and I literally like signed it. I was like, give me the papers. Like, I want to learn to play like that. I literally signed to Hawaii in LMU's gym. It was great. You know, I wanted to learn to play like that. And I just felt like if I ever made it to the starting team for the University of Hawaii, I would be a real volleyball player, because the stuff that I saw these guys doing, Alan Allen, Brian Papinga, Gary Van Sickle, Damian Hardy, Lyman LaCroix, Adam Lockwood. There was this group that was there that was just beautiful, right? When you say like Brazilian football, you know, the dance, the beautiful game. It was the beautiful game of volleyball, and very fast, very fluid, incredible defense. And, you know, I went on to become a first-team All-American there, and we actually brought the school to their Final Four for the first time, which was kind of bizarre. Like the fact
that's exciting.
It was exciting. You know, it in more ways than one. One thing that happened is we went from playing in what was considered the hardest place to play in the world, which was a large A-frame gym with maybe like, I don't even know, club gym, but 30, 40-foot ceiling, no windows, no air conditioning. And they used to allow the fans to pack down and sit on the floor. And these aren't normal fans. Hawaii is, you know, I tell people, I tell this to my daughter. I say, look, you're going to have to decide what level you want to play this sport. For some people, right, it's recreation. For some people, it's sport. And then for others, it's a religion.
Right.
And these are three very different things. You are going to have to decide for yourself what level you're willing to get involved and what you're willing to put out to be involved at those various levels, right? In Hawaii, UH volleyball is a religion. So these aren't normal fans. These are fans with tea leaves and, oh my God, like women dressed as men dressed as women. Like you just have no idea what's coming for you. That's, for those of you who don't know, that's not a gender thing. It's called the bozos. I mean, like, I think maybe they were the bozos eventually because they were just too crazy. I don't even know what happened. But it was absolutely nuts. No windows, no air conditioning, you know, 85, 90 degrees. And you have to remember, this is side-out volleyball, so the longest match played in that gym was over 5 hours, right? So a grueling long style of play. And we moved from that to a new arena that sat 10,000 people by my senior year, and we set at that point was the national record for crowd size at a little bit over 10,000 in that run-up to the Final Four. So it's just
there were 10,000 seats and there was about 11,000 people there still.
10,031 was the first night. I think they didn't count the second night, but it was literally unheard of to that point in the sport. And so, just couldn't have had a more fantastic experience. And I kind of walked away from the sport a little bit, pretty much, after that experience, which was maybe a little strange for a lot of people. But what had happened was, in between my junior and senior year, I essentially became the first NCAA athlete ever to secure their NIL rights.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically went into a little tiff with the NCAA. It didn't last very long, and said, you can't stop me from doing work, like as labor law. You can't stop me from doing something that I did as work before I got to college,
right,
just because I'm here playing in college. And so basically there was an agreement around that. And what happened was I would be flying from Hawaii around the world and doing ad campaigns for the biggest designers in the world, whether it was Versace or Calvin Klein or Ralph Lauren. Chloe, worked a lot with Karl Lagerfeld when he was alive. Gianni when he was alive, like I said, Armani, Levi's. I'm trying to remember all the ones I did. It was so fast and happening so fast. So I would literally leave Hawaii, fly to the south of France, work, come back, play a game, and it was like
just
this,
nonstop.
Right? Yeah, it was really wild, and it created this fervor, which led to the fans coming in. But what happened was that legacy of people being able to use their name, image, and likeness for their own benefit, that obviously took decades to become, I guess you would say, law, or at least by law at this point. Right. And so, that was great to kind of be the spearhead of that movement. I mean, because at the very same time, Ed O'Banion was in court for EA, I think it was EA Sports, taking his name, image, and likeness and using it as, a character in their game. That lawsuit was going on at that time. So I was in a very unique position. After that, I spent a lot of time in the entertainment world and played a little bit on tour, but I wasn't really training so much, wasn't so serious about that. I was doing a lot of TV shows. I've done over like 200 episodes of TV shows and films, and been lucky enough to do some beautiful work in that. And then I had a child, and that story about, the parents getting involved and, the sports start, and, everybody who played a sport then wants to create a club experience for their kid. And, my story was no different. I just think that maybe I had a little different perspective. When I started with the group of kids, we started out of a park in terms of what I wanted their experience to be, knowing what was out there, what Southern California volleyball in some respects had become. It was kind of a minefield where there were some very good clubs out there and very venerable clubs. And then there were some places that I just didn't like the way that they were going about what they're doing. I said, well, Los Angeles had never had a volleyball club before. There was clubs that have used the name, but they were, not really focused on kids in the Los Angeles area. And so I said, let's do this. Let's create a place where kids of Los Angeles can come and learn this game at an elite level, learn the art of the game, which is really something that had been passed down for me from Rose Hill and Crab. And then we had some beautiful Japanese coaches that had come and work with our program, Yoji Masa and others. And, really being able to learn from some of the greats, whether it was Al Skates or wherever it was along the way. Ken Preston was one of my favorite coaches, camps, all that. But let's make sure that this lineage of training gets passed down through the generations. Right.
Right.
And so that was really where LAVBC, the impetus to starting the club really came from. Right. And from there, you realize right away that you have to start preparing the children for the journey. Right. If I think there's too much attention, or there's a lot of folks that want to prepare the road for the player rather than the player for the road.
Right.
And we were talking a little bit about sports performance earlier, and that's where all that comes in terms of what are you doing to support these kids who are now at 16 years old playing at what used to be a college level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
is that enough story for you, Jeremy? Is that enough?
Yeah, no, that's a great story. I mean, except for the fact that, so just to recap for everyone, so you were a soccer/football player for those outside of the U.S. You played a little bit of golf, didn't really talk about that, got into volleyball, did some modeling. You kind of talked about that for a little bit. You just glossed over that you were in TV and film in like hundreds of different pieces. You just completely ignored that when you were talking your story. And then, then you started the LA Volleyball Club. So let me ask you a question. What kind of shows were you in?
Everything from, Hollywood films to soap operas to, I was, one of the stars of a comedy for Tyler Perry for about 5 years. One of my favorite shows I did was with HBO, called The Comeback. That was just a lot of fun. It was really, really cool. Little show. I've gone to work with some really cool people. Got to work with Anne Rice and Peter Medak and all kinds of just like beautiful people, directors. Ben Vereen, I got to work with Pam Grier. That was one of my favorite films. I've done a lot of. I ended up doing a lot of comedy, which I thought was strange, but I really enjoy doing comedy. And I guess like I'm not funny really, but I guess if you give me a script, I can kind of figure out with a bunch of people how to make it funny,
How to be funny, yeah.
Yeah. I'm no Jim Carrey, but it's I enjoyed it. I liked going to work on that kind of stuff. All the CSAs, all that kind of stuff. I think I've killed everybody in those things. Pretty sure.
So you weren't the good guy in the CSIs, you were the bad guy.
Yeah. Are you not? I can't say. I just work here, right? I can't really tell you.
Okay, so going back to sports now, like what is, out of all the memories you've had, whether as an athlete or even as a coach, like what's your favorite memory?
Like playing wise or
coaching, or
just
both?
in sports, in general.
Just in sports, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's just insanity. I'll tell you one of the things that I'm very happy that I did that I remember. And I became very conscious, while this kind of whirlwind was going on, right? That I really needed to be present and that I needed to take it all in. And we had a match that was basically the match to get into the Final Four. I remember, so you're talking about it's that crowd, it's 10,000 something people, right? And before the last point of this game is played, which is, captured on tape and all this, I said, you know what? When this serve goes in there, I'm just going to take it all in. And I was at a place in the game where it was moving pretty slow for me. There was definitely a few players that were not moving slow and never would their whole career and had amazing Olympic careers. Jeff Nygaard, how are you? He was my favorite because Jeff was an absolute monster. And just now the head coach of USC, fantastic. One of my favorite people, even though we hardly ever talk. Well, Jeff hardly ever talks. But one of my favorite people, one of the greatest volleyball players I ever got to play against, that entire team. So we played against a UCLA team that had 7 Olympians on it, including the current coach of the U.S. men's team, right, who won a gold medal as an assistant. I mean, that team was just, I think, was the greatest college team to ever play, okay, when you look at all the Olympians on that team and who they later became and all that. And Jeff, of course, as I said, is the head coach of the USC right now. But, you know, it got lost a little bit there, but I was very like aware that it was a unique year. It was a unique group of athletes throughout the NCAA. You have to remember Todd Rogers was playing for UCSB at the time. You knew that these guys were going to go out and just do incredible things because they were so good. What, Todd won 2, 3 gold medals? I can't remember. It was a lot of gold. So I just stopped, right? That's why I was talking about the fact that some players, you definitely were always moving fast, but I just stopped and I looked around, the ball's going, and I just looked around the gym. And I'm just watching, I'm just like soaking it in. Ball goes to the outside, and the guy just gets up and delivers, and it hits me in the chest, and then we dig it and put it away for the like, let me walk into the right spot here again, going back to goalkeeping, right? Let me cut off this angle while I take this in. Oh, that's a ball blasting me in my chest, but I guess we get that point too. That was incredible. I'll never forget that
But
moment.
no broken ribs, though. So,
no,
so was that
much
why
safer.
The experience was incredible?
Oh God, volleyball is much safer, much lighter ball. So that was, of course, incredible. And then, I just recently, our club, this past season, we had a very rough. We went to a big qualifier, Red Rock, which we had run a bronze medal in at a Liberty Division the year before, and we went in and we faced a very tough Houston Juniors team in the quarterfinals. And it was one of those things where we were probably the better team, and this team, Houston Juniors, to their credit, absolutely leveled up, played out of their minds, and ended up beating us in the quarterfinal. It was a fantastic match. And it was tough to say, going back to this experience, which, it's funny, this is coming together for me right now as I speak, with this UCLA team. It's like, sometimes you lose and it's really not a loss. You're just playing against a fantastic group of individuals, or you're just playing a team that is on fire, but you yourself did not play bad. You played really well. You hear Kobe talk about this a lot. You hear Federer talk endlessly about this. It's like, once you leave it all out there, winning or losing is really often, it really is always out of your control. Okay. It just, depends on the day the other guy's having as well. And so, sharing that lesson with this team, and it was a big defeat for us because that was not in our cards. We were expecting to go in there and walk away with gold and walk away with a bid to the national championships. We had to come home and really regroup. And we ended up going to a second qualifier, which we, as a young club, we had never even done before. And we went to Reno. And this team, you had one shot. You had to win the gold medal in like American division, one level down, and you had to win the gold. It was gold or nothing. And this team ended up not dropping a set and winning the gold medal.
Wow, that's impressive.
That was it's hard. I get choked up about this sport for whatever reason. It's given me so much. And even now it's like, God, it's hard for me not to get choked up knowing what those girls went through. Being able to come back into the gym to have the belief that, maybe if you just put your whole heart into it for another 3 weeks, maybe the end of I always say it's a funnel, right? It gets real dark and real cramped at the end of that funnel. And when you're there is when you need to push. The hardest point you need to push is when you need to push. And then, boom, you're out into the daylight. And I guess the fact that, 4 years before this, we had created the club. We had taken a group through COVID, right, which meant building outdoor courts, having the train outside, training kids in my front yard, all this just to keep the teams together, to keep them training. You know that other places in the nation are not doing what we did here in LA with all the lockdowns and everything. Texas was playing, Indianapolis was playing, all these places around the country are
Except
playing.
for California was
and you
not
got to
playing.
go compete,
the whole
man.
state.
You got to go compete, and there's no excuses, right? There's no excuses, and we really made none. And so knowing that we had created this club, that we had stuck to our guns in terms of working through COVID, we also had never had an outbreak within the club ever. We only had one kid who ever tested positive. So we were doing it all the right way, but it was very hard. And to see them work through all that and then win this bid outright was just, that was an incredible, probably most incredible journey for me in sports. As someone who founded the club, directed the club, bringing in the coaches, getting these coaches to get, these kids in line with their philosophy, because they're very, very, very good coaches, right? And have been through it all and done it all. Watching that whole process, so far, I would have to say in sports, that's my number one thing that I've experienced.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, especially from the time you started the club to making on the national stage in less than 4 years. I mean, that's incredibly impressive. I mean, for any organization to do so, and then on top with that whole story, I mean, that's just amazing. So, I mean, that's just awesome. So, you're obviously doing something special there, but you just didn't show up on the volleyball court one day, or as an athlete, or showed up on the volleyball court as a coach, and you're like, oh, I've learned all these awesome things in my life. Like, obviously you learned them from somewhere. So who had the most impact on your career, like whether as an athlete or as a coach?
God, that's such an interesting question, Jeremy. I love that question, because here's the reality. I can't tell you whether Tony Crabb or Tyler Perry has more influence on this club. Isn't that odd? That's strange, right?
No, that is.
That's strange. You'll only hear it here, right? And I say this, from Tony, right, was passed down to me the culture of Hawaii Vol, and all those guys, Allen, Damon, all those guys were in our gym, right? It was, let me tell you this, Hawaii Volleyball Gym at that time was not a safe place. It was not a safe place. It was a fight, sometimes physically, for real, with fists. Not every practice, but often, right?
Mm-hmm.
The level of passion that was in that gym was incredible. I just was back in Hawaii just like the first 2 weeks of August, and got to see a lot of these old friends and guys. Just unbelievable group, time in the sport. But then, so from there, you learn the art of the game. But Tyler Perry, one time I'm walking in the studio and he goes, "You know what your problem is? You don't dream big enough." I'm like, "Good morning, Tyler."
Yeah.
It's literally 5:30 in the morning, right? And
right.
We're at work, and this is how he greets you walking past you in the morning.
Right, exactly.
I think I'm doing pretty good. Listen, at this time, I one thing that I've had in my life, which has been so interesting, which is really just a fate thing, I guess, is I've been put in positions where you break molds, or you break records, or you make history. At this point, working for Tyler, we're doing 4 TV shows a day.
Wow.
Now, normally one of these shows, like if I say I'm working, was Lisa Kudrow, right, with The Comeback. That's one show in 1 week. One show in 1 week. That is total standard Hollywood, how you make a comedy, okay?
Right.
We are doing 4 shows a day. Okay. And he walks by me and goes, "You don't dream big enough." I was like, "I think I'm doing pretty good getting 4 checks a day. Thank you very much." Right? It's good to me. And then you go home and you just go, "Dude, this guy's awesome. He's 100% right. This is a guy who was at one point like living in and out of his car, who now
Right.
let me put this in perspective. You could take every studio in Los Angeles, every single studio, and put them inside of his studio. And I think the number is you would still have 60 acres left over.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a big studio.
It's the biggest, right? It's incredible. And this guy went from here to there. And he did it, through his talent and his sweat and his unbelievable mind. Not only, you don't find that to be so unbelievable in creating teams and on the business side, but then being so incredibly skilled on the creative side. For me in my life, I definitely wanted that experience from a young age. I always thought it was about being Renaissance. I always thought that it was about, listen, you have to have your sports, you have to have your art, you have to have your academics,
right.
And you got to go build something like the Renaissance. Like that was the point of being, a human being on Earth. I always, for whatever reason, believed that. And so I set out to do that. But now you're meeting a guy like, okay, all right, maybe he can't hit a volleyball, but my God. This is a guy who's like, and listen, it's not about the money when I say this, but it's about the ability to set a goal and reach the goal, whatever that is for yourself. We're
right.
sitting okay. So the first lunch we're having at his house that looks like a hotel in Vegas. I mean, it looks like Caesar's Palace. And he goes, "So guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to become a billionaire in cash." And this is what he says. He goes, not in stock, not in maybe, in cash, just like Oprah. And, those two are like best friends. And we're like, "That's awesome, man. Can you pass the beans, please?" Okay. Well, Jeremy, 4 or 5 years later, it's announced, right, that he reaches this goal. And it says, okay, he's finally a billionaire. But what I knew was, it's in cash, right? And I'm not saying it now. I know it sounds like I'm talking about money, but that's not what I'm talking about.
You're talking about building something.
What he built to the money was just right. And so when we talk about process, right, there's no way that I can say that in saying like, okay, well, I'm gonna go build this club. You know what? Me being a volleyball coach, it's just not enough for me personally. Right? It's not going to get me up in the morning. But if I go create a club and I have 20 teams with 20 different issues, that's exciting for me. Right? Let's go. Creating, how do you get enough incredibly skilled people in a room to be able to build a club like that? How do you turn yourself in the kind of person who is, a business partner working with the level of people that you want to work with? Some of the people that we work with in one of our facilities, the last sports performance entity that they built, they sold to the Dodgers. The Dodgers are just like, we'll take it all, because it was that incredible, right? Just a sports performance kind of understanding, right? Now,
right.
We got to the point where I picked up the phone and we got cold called by these people, say, "Hey, what do you think about working with us? We want to get into volleyball." Absolutely. I mean, it's just so special. And then you're watching a 10-year-old walk in and start working on sports performance with this caliber of people, right? And so Tyler going, "I don't think you're really doing much. I don't think you're doing enough." It's pretty awesome. Right?
So let's talk about your athletes for a few minutes. Did you start out with just an all-star team? Like you're just like going to all the clubs and saying, "Hey, I want that player, I want that player." You're talking to the parents and say, "Hey, drop your club and come over here," or were you just starting with local kids?
Are you trying to pick a fight in our first conversation?
No, I'm not trying to pick a fight. I just think I know what the answer is. I just want you to share with everyone else.
You just like named the exact thing that just like curdles my blood and keeps me up at night and wakes me up in the morning. This idea that adults are going to look at kids who are really good at whatever sport it is. I don't care if it's volleyball, football, whatever, soccer, whatever. I don't care what it is, baseball, right? Also got our world champs. Let's go. Those are some of my high school coaches, those guys, the Lennons, the Bowleys, right. What amazing sports families forever in this town. So happy for them. That you're going to look at a kid who is so good that you think that that kid is going to win games for you, and your first thought is, let me see how I can take that kid away from the coaches that have helped him or her achieve this level of proficiency. If there was a prison that could hold these people, I can't understand. I understand it. But the fact that I understand it makes it very difficult for me to have respect for people who think this way, adults who think this way. And I am not that kind of person. But I view it as a form of abuse. Because what you are doing is taking minors and you're viewing them as a financial asset to yourself. And let me just run this down how there's no other way to view it. The reason that coaches and directors do this, the reason they look out at a sea of players and go, oh, I want you and I want you and I want you. And they go after these players as though they're in a supermarket, right? Which means right away, they have commodified these players. The reason they're doing it is they're saying, well, if we get this player, we will win more games. If we win more games, well, what does that mean to you? Aren't you an adult? Haven't you played before? Don't you have enough trophies? Haven't you won? Like, have you really not satiated your desire to win a volleyball game yet? Really? Like, is that where we're at? Okay, that's not the reason, right? The reason is because you believe that if you win that game and you go out and market that, hey, we won this game, we're a top 10 team, we're a top 5 team, hey, we won this gold medal, we won this bronze medal, that you'll get more business, more money walking in through the door because you believe that people choose the club they're going to play for based on their record of wins and losses. So this is the calculation you've made. That this player will improve you as an adult, your financial bottom line. And you have now commodified this player. And you have turned the process of developing into a player into a results-orientated ecosphere.
But this isn't just the coaches that are doing this. Like a lot of the parents are knowingly doing that. Like most parents are knowingly doing this as well.
Careful how you use the word knowingly. Jeremy, if 1%, let's just say, and maybe the numbers have changed, okay? But let's just say 1% of players go on to play in D1, okay? Let's say 0.01% of those players are All-Americans or things like that, okay?
Right.
In a national championship, right? 0.001%, okay? How many of your players, let's say, I'm going to speak personally, how many of my adults, my parents in my gym, know anything about the journey it takes to reach that level as an athlete? A percentage of zero, right? A percentage of, somewhere between 0.001% and zero is going to be that percent.
Right.
Now, once you start talking about the club athletes, like, look, when I started my club with, a group of 10, 11-year-olds, there was probably like 12 of them. I know they say that you're not supposed to be able to do this. Oh no. I saw 6 to 7 kids that could go play college volleyball, right?
Mm-hmm.
By 13, there was 2 of them already playing on the HP US team, US Beach team. Right now, you can look around. The number one at several high schools in LA, the number one player, are sophomores that were on this team. Like, no, they're number
Mm-hmm.
4. They're playing, right? They're really playing ball. The reason why people say you can't predict that is the other side. A couple of these players, a couple of the best, right, quit playing club indoor volleyball altogether, right? This culture came for them, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not gonna fill in the story in between. All I'm gonna say is what we see. You go for the culture, it doesn't work out. Now you're not playing anymore. When you should be rising into your 16th year, you should be rising, going through the roof. Now, for whatever reason, you've quit that part of the sport. Now, okay, it might be to go play beach or something like that. Okay, but in this part of the sport, where on our side of the ledger we saw endless runway, that runway ended for you. Okay, and some of it is because when you're brought into that kind of culture, right, you've been commodified. And so an adult who's going to see a child as a commodity, how much of their day is spent worrying about, sweating about, how am I going to help this child develop? Mm-hmm. Because really kind of what you've already admitted to yourself is you think they're developed enough. Like they're developed so much that I'm going to spend my time on this side of the ledger calling, emailing, conversing, cajoling, right? To get that kid to leave their friends, to drop the coaches that have gotten them there. Like my one coach, I love his saying, Coach DeBillis, he always says, look, me coaching you volleyball, that takes money. The love is free, right? If you're talking about getting in this town, okay, so this is where the soccer thing comes about. When we went and played football, okay, we were playing in the epicenter, one of the epicenters in the world, right? Madrid, Spain. You want to go be a great soccer player? Go, okay? Messi's right down the street, okay? Right? Literally, right? Here, it's volleyball. Southern California, this is one of the epicenters of the world.
Right.
And so we have these parents who are coming in. Hey, my kid, she likes to play volleyball. We're looking at trying out. We go, okay, great. Understand where you are, right? Understand why it is how it is. And we have to educate on this, right? And now we're gonna take that stone, right? And like when we do tryouts, I know this conversation is going all over the place, but that's what I do. We use this brilliant. I'm going to give a little plug here for Team Genius because I love Team Genius. It's a work tryout application. But what I love about this is for the first time it gave us a digital way to weight the intangibles. When we do our tryout process, let's say a kid gets a 3 for passing, but they get a 3 for work ethic. In other words, I'm watching. Yeah, you're a good passer. 3 out of 5, that's really good, especially if you're only 10 and you're just starting. That's incredible. That's incredible clay to work with. But when we call shag, if you're that kid who's like, hey, throw me the ball, I'll stand here and put it in. Oh, now you got a 1, and that 1 is weighted 70% more than your 3.
Right.
So that other kid that just ran and grabbed the ball and was like ran and got another one and ran and got another one. Oh, now she's at a 4. And now you guys just went like this, even though you can pass a volleyball better at your age, because because when we look at that, we go, hey, volleyball's our problem. If the kid can't play volleyball, that's on us. I'll tell you 100%, we will fix that problem, right? If you give us the other side of the equation, which is the intangibles. Right. So now you're working with these kids' intangibles. You're working through their performance anxiety, all the many facets of performance anxiety, and you're working with them, and you're basically chipping that rock till you get down to, just half the diamond is showing. We don't know if it's a few carat. We don't know if it's the Hope diamond. We don't know if it's someone lost an earring, right? We don't know, but there's a little flash, right? And that flash gets out on the court, and what happens is you see all the heads turn, and the picture that comes up in my mind, maybe like from my theatrical background, is Gollum from Lord of the Rings. The ring. Like, if I can just get my hands on this kid, I can go get that ring. And if I get that ring, I can mark it and I can get more kids. My God, dude. My God. Like, and for that, we're gonna rip up teams that are winning medals on the national level. You're going to go after kids on a team that are competing on a national level and bringing home medals. You're not going to consider that at all. And I'm not even talking about my club at this point. We haven't won any medals on the national level. We won medals on the regional level. But what I've seen, right, and you're going to go rip that team up, and that same team then has to turn around and we got to go play Mad Frog, Texas. We got to go play TAV, Texas. We got to go play Metro out of D.C. We got to go play 305 out of Florida. We got to go play 808. We got to go play SAS out of Hawaii. SAS has been along so long and so good that my assistant director came out of SAS, and was playing in the HP system, right?
So when you have, so let me ask you a question. There's some parents that I'm sure come to your club and they're like, hey, I want my kid to go to the Olympics one day and I'm going to make sure that happens. Like, can you support that as a coach? And you're probably thinking about that. And then you probably have some parents who are like, hey, this other club came to me and, they want us to take our son or daughter and bring them over there. Mm-hmm. For me as a coach, I've always found, when I've created my teams where I've tried to maximize playing time for every single player. So if I had multiple teams that had, smaller rosters where the youth athletes got as much playing time as possible. And you were talking about like twos teams, right? So when you have these parents who are trying to live vicariously through their kids or trying to make their kids the breadwinner in the future, do you tell them, yes, great, go do that? Do you tell them, how I coach is different and, if you don't agree with how we're doing it, you should take them? Or is it something like, hey, you can't take your kids over there. It's a great opportunity, but your kid's going to get more playing time and better coaching here. They're not going to be sitting on the bench of a group of all-stars. Your kids are going to be playing here. They're going to be getting the most love and attention here, and that's going to result in getting in becoming a better player. Like, where do you kind of stand on that?
I always stand on the truth, right? If someone says to me, look, and I'll just say the names because I love the people that create them. I love the sweat and the hard work and everything they've done to create these clubs and all the accolades that they have received for doing so are so well deserved. But if a kid comes to me and says, hey, listen, I want to go play at Mizuno. Okay, we have a starting libero on the U.S. team, gold medal libero, came out of Mizuno. Okay, I'm going to say, why? What are you looking at? Well, then she'll tell me. I'm not going to argue with you that there's a fantastic education to be had at Mizuno. SCVC, who was the only Southern California club, and this has gone on for decades at this point with them, to win Open 17 gold. Like, okay, what team are you playing on? Who's gonna be coaching that team? I look over there and say, those coaches, man, okay, let's just say it's fantastic coach, right? Okay, but let's talk about like what are you doing over here? Now I'm not going to argue X's and O's with you on that. All right, but here's what I want to talk about. Here's our plan for you. I don't have any issue with that, right? Mm-hmm. Where the issue comes up more and more is when you feel like you're watching a kid kind of throw an opportunity away for what the thing that will always be thrown up. And this is when I say, be careful of that word knowledgeable, right? Mm-hmm. In the parents and the fact that, over 99.5% of parents have no idea what the journey is. What they know is wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go over here and you say like, oh, look what we wins and we losses, and meanwhile, everyone in the region, all the directors in the region go, yeah, well, those kids were all developed elsewhere.
Right.
You understand? Now you have a cancer, in my opinion. Now you have a cancer, because what really good organizations in the sport of volleyball are looking to do is actually feed the USA pipeline. And I heard was it Mr. McInnes
Yes.
from Australia, right? Whoa, man, fascinating interview. That was a great interview, Jeremy. And I learned a lot from listening to him. And because he went from the focus on one sport to now really what he's looking for is building pipelines across many different sports now. But he experienced sports that he was not proficient in building the pipeline, water polo, whatever it might be. And so in volleyball, right, in this country, and he mentioned the United States in terms of our collegiate program, in this country, it's not like Spain. It's not like Real Madrid. You don't, at 7 years old, they don't pluck you off the street, off the street watching you play in between the cars or whatever it might be and go, hey, you're going to Real Madrid for the rest of your life from the time you're 7 years old, right? And there was actually a very interesting little study done. It was on NPR, and these guys looked at the numbers. The amount of players in not Major League Soccer, but European soccer that Premier League, right, that have the birthdays within the same 3 months, it's like 80% of the league. Because you're so more advanced if you have the older birthday at 7. At 7 it matters.
Right,
at 7 a month matters, right? And that's when they're picking them, right? So in America, for volleyball, we have the club system. We have a public-private partnership. Private being the clubs, which are private corporations that are built, that have to figure out how to grow, maintain themselves, have to figure out how to stay alive in whatever business environment they're in. The business environment here of trying to put up a gym in LA or get a gym space at $3.50 a square foot is very different than I don't want to insult anybody, but maybe $1.25 in Texas. I don't know. That's maybe high. It's very different, right?
I mean, and I think you're being generous when you're saying $3.75 a square foot. I mean, I would have to imagine in LA, that's probably like 10, 20, 100, dollars a square foot. I mean, even more like. I mean, Southern California, especially Orange County, LA, like land values are not cheap, and so if you have big open land, it's a lot different.
Oh, you're building and owning your facilities and all that. The point being is that through this process, right, of the private clubs, we are growing volleyball players to the point where most, I think, knowledgeable coaches would agree with me that the United States volleyball, especially on the women's side, should at this point really be like the women's basketball. Like, yes, it's taking us 56 years to win gold. We should never lose again. I saw a picture of a girl who was touching 11 feet and was still in club.
Wow.
Out of Metro, right? This was she graduated club some time ago, okay? But the kind of athletes that we have in this country are unparalleled. And what's happened is that our club coaching systems have gotten so good. The staffs have gotten so good, right? The clubs that are dedicated on development, that the players that we're putting out on the collegiate level, these kids are going out and competing for scholarships against essentially international pro players. My university was one of the first to really jump into this, right? I played with became the number one of Austria, the number one of Israel. Another guy from Israel was not bad either, right? We've had, some of the best out of Greece recently, the best out of Brazil. Like, Hawaii is known for their international players, and we used to get a lot of flack for it back in the day. Now it's kind of to the point where everybody's doing it. But the point is with NIL, with NIL and the way colleges are using NIL, what's happening on the women's side is that all the greatest players in the world, youth players in the world, can now come get a scholarship in America.
Right.
And our girls that are coming out of this private club system, the clubs are the only thing giving them a chance to compete at the Division I level for those scholarships. Right? There's only 4.5 on the men's side. There's 13 indoor scholarships roughly on the women's side. Right? And I was up coaching, helping Coach Sam coach his elite camp up in Berkeley. Okay, well, one of the girls coming in is on the Chinese national team. I'm coaching a U16 girl that the level was just unbelievable. She's been in their national pipeline for years, and and the rest of the group was very good from top clubs, T Street, where they're very good young middles. They really didn't know too much of what I was talking about. This girl, she knew everything. The amount of time that she had spent with ultra high level coaches by the time she was 16 was probably 2 to 3 years advance of some of our better players.
Right.
Okay. But what happens is that we have a tendency to catch our athletes up. And not only that once we get them into the collegiate systems, our collegiate systems are so good and then you combine that with the American athleticism, which really comes from this incredible pool of diversity we have in this country, right? Now you once you pool that talent at the Olympic level, now is when you're seeing, us with the ability to win these gold medals.
Right, exactly. So before we wrap up this interview, if you had to field a dream team of volleyball players, like it could be men, women, youth players, professional players of any sports, it could even be non-sports people. Who would be on your team of your starting six?
Bill Russell, number one. I go anybody that wins that many rings, that's my captain. Bill Russell's my captain. All right. People tend to forget that he won all those rings when he couldn't drink out of any water fountain he wanted all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to win is one thing. To win under those conditions, that's a completely different thing. So he fascinates me. I'm going to go with Misty May because she is the kindest gold medalist I've ever met. She is just, first year we were playing and we were playing this team. I look over and she was the coach of this U11 team. I'm like, Misty, guys, come over here. I need you to meet somebody, and that's Misty, just forever giving back. The ultimate team player, I feel. God, dude, the rest. God, I think you have to have Micah Setting. I mean, he's just a gift to the game. Got to go Allen, my all-time favorite. Two of my all-time favorites. Allen, gonna have him hitting outside, and I'm gonna have Brian Ivey, my off-ball. I love Brian Ivey. He was, from around this area, and I got to grow up and watch him do his thing. I just always loved him as a player. And then come on, John Morant. I think we got to have Morant hitting out of the back row, don't we? He's just such a freakish, fun athlete, And then Brady, right? Can you lose? Can you lose with Russell and Brady? Is there even a chance of losing? I'm not sure. True. I'm not sure there's a chance of losing. Yeah, and I'll take Arantes. Yeah. I'll take Arantes as a leader. I love watching her play and just knowing how she came up, and she's a local product who is just really indefatigable as a libero, and there's only one out there, and when you're one of one in a nation, that's it's good stuff. Good stuff. So proud of being a resident of the area and the beautiful work that Mizuno did with that player. And, of course that, it's all competition. So we strive to make our players better.
So, Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today. Before you go, do you have a final statement to make to any athlete, coach, support staff, high performance directors, or the athlete support structure, whether here in the U.S. or around the world?
Lately for me, and I went this summer and traveled to some of my favorite clubs, directors in colleges, Arizona, USC, LMU, where else were we? Berkeley, Irvine, and just very different, Hawaii, of course, different cultures, different programs, and seeing what people are doing out here on the West Coast. And development.
Mm-hmm.
These players are not going to be at their peak. They're 14 years old. They're 10 years away from their peak.
Their body's not even going to be at the same size.
10 years away from their peak, and we're worrying about, who's on the podium. Listen, celebrate the podium. No one loves to do that more than me. I love celebrating our victories. But that being up on a podium has to be in such a deep second place to development, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for the kids as well, understand that wins and losses, right? No college coach is going to show up and take you out as a scholarship athlete because you won volleyball games. That's not how this works. Every single college is looking for the lone wolf in the gym. In a gym of 200, 3 are going. Right? So what happens is that coaches are looking for the lone wolves, and then all the lone wolves come together on campus and they say, this is your pack. Right? So understand that what you should be focused on is finding the environment that you believe will best develop you as an individual athlete. Once volleyball is such an industry sport because it's so individualistic, and then we have to find a way to fit that individual unique piece into a puzzle, right? It's very much like that. Very unique piece is going to fit into a beautiful whole. But focusing on the development will keep you coming back to the gym on the hard days, on the tough days, the days you don't want to be there, right? Those are the days you most need to go, because understand you're at the end of the funnel there. You're ready for that breakthrough. It can happen in a matter of a day. I've seen it happen in a matter of 24 hours. The kid didn't get something. Now she or he has got something. It's a different player the next day because they showed up. Keep showing up. Keep developing. Keep showing respect, honor, loyalty for those places that you go that are willing to develop you. Okay, because these are places that, and there's many of them, but these are places that are putting the sport first, right? Because the sport is here and the sport's not changing for you, right? So the key is, can we teach you how to conform and submit to what the sport demands of you? And if we can get into that word submit, people don't like it these days. People are scared of it because they think it's giving up power. It's the exact opposite. Right? If we look at it like martial arts, like what I was talking about, we were talking about jiu-jitsu a little bit, but like, if you don't submit to the black belt, and the black belt in the room in volleyball is the game itself, if you don't submit to it will never show you its secrets, and you will never develop to the point of being a master of it. You have to give up control in order to learn, and then be able to then gain the control and teach it. So for my message, development.
Awesome. And to our viewers and listeners, please vote for Jason and Culture and Sports' 2023 Sports Leader of the Year at cultureandsports.com, and all you have to do is click on Sports Leader of the Year. And that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Culture and Sports Podcast. We hope that this episode has started an internal dialogue, or even one with your team, about the importance of leadership and organizational culture. If you'd like to learn more about culture and sports, the Culture and Sports Podcast, or other programs, go to cultureandsports.com, where there is a wealth of resources, articles, research, podcasts, video shows, webinars, and courses. And don't forget to connect with us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn at Culture and Sports, and on Twitter at Culture in Sport. Thank you for tuning in to the Culture in Sports podcast.